Ken and Pine with Smart Moves Realty. They've made a bunch of changes to how you work with a real estate agent when you're a buyer. And so we're going to go over those changes with you today. The NAR, the National Association of Realtors, has just changed their paperwork for all real estate agents across the nation. So now, as a buyer, when you work with a buyer's agent, this is the new paperwork that will be required. The big changes on this paperwork are that the agent must have a signed broker agreement to work for you to be able to show you one house, like the first house. Before they could wait, now it must be done at the time of that first showing. So we're going to show you what's on this agreement, but we're also going to give you some tips and tricks so that you know what you can do if you're just getting to know an agent and you're not sure if that's who you want to help you. And we'll give you some tips and tricks so that you can get to know them first before you're committed for a long-term contract. So on this agreement, it has some of the normal stuff, company, name of the agent, name of the buyer, that's typical. The part that's different is that it has a spot for you to say, only this county or only at this address. And it gives a lot of space for that. The other form was a lot smaller and a little harder to deal with. This one's a lot nicer that way. The big difference in practical application of how this is going to work is the agents are going to fill in what they charge. And so what they charge is in section 2.1, where you have either a set flat fee or you have a percentage of the purchase price. And that amount is what they're charging you. Now, just because they're charging you does not mean that you personally are paying it. Just like the old system, a lot of the sellers are going to be paying it. So section 2.2 is talking about that fee that they owe you being satisfied by a third party. So essentially the fee that the seller pays that goes to your buyer broker or buyer's agent will be satisfied by doing that. One difference now is that whatever amount they put in here, they cannot charge you more than that. And so if the commission that the seller is willing to pay is more than that, then you should be getting the difference. And I think that's a great thing. But they won't be able to charge you more than that unless it's in writing. So they would have to do an addendum to this agreement to be able to do that. Now, if you work with an agent that does not get the seller to pay this fee for you, then you are actually responsible for it. So when you sign an agreement, what you want to talk to the agent about is, what is your plan for getting this paid? Has the seller already said that they're willing to pay a specific amount? If not, what are you going to do to get that covered? Because there are ways that you can get it covered without it costing you anything. One thing to notice on this agreement is there is a space. If you've signed an agreement for a specific house with another brokerage, you can actually write that in right here. And that's one of the things that is going to be more common because every single agent is going to have a written agreement. One of the tips and tricks I would say is that when you don't know them well enough to want to be committed to them for say 3 months or something like you typically find on a buyer broker agreement, you can ask them to put in the address that they're showing you. So you want to look at this one. If it works out great, they can help you. If it doesn't work out, then you're not obligated. You can move on to someone else if you want to. And that gives you time to get to know the person. And then later you can sign one that applies to the county that you're looking in if you don't want to keep signing a new one. The document that buyer's agents will use to get the seller to pay the fee is this document right here, Real Estate Brokerage Compensation Agreement. On this agreement, it has a place for them to put how much they want. As you do this, you'll want to pay close attention that the amount that they're asking is matching what you have on your buyer broker agreement. And if for some reason it needs to be different, you can do an addendum to the broker agreement, but it needs to be agreed on by you and by your buyer's agent. This document goes with the offer and it tells the seller what you guys are expecting to happen on the commission. And previous to these changes, this was done through the MLS, so we would know automatically how much they want to pay. And if it needed to be different than that, then there was an addendum that we would use to make a change to it. But in most cases, agents would just take what the seller was willing to pay. And you can still do that by asking the listing agent what the seller is willing to pay before you make an offer so that you know what the expectation is. And if you don't like what they're wanting to do, you can still, on this agreement here, propose what it should be or what you want it to be. And then when this is signed, that becomes the new agreement. This document has replaced the advertising the buyer agent commission over the MLS system, which is the multiple listing service for our area. Another thing to note is that it expires at the end of the term that's written in, or when the deal has closed. To understand how this now works, let's take a look at the paperwork that a seller signs, the listing paperwork that they sign with their agent. On this document, it talks about the regular things, address to the property, how long it's going to be listed with the company. It has, in section 2.1, it has how much the seller is going to be paying the agent that's representing them, the listing agent. But then it has a section 2.2 where they give permission to the agent that they've hired to tell other brokerages that are helping buyers how much they are willing to pay. So their option is to give a flat fee amount or to give a percentage of the gross purchase price. And so knowing this, that's how you find out when your buyer's agent communicates with the listing agents, that's how you find out what the seller is expecting is based on what they put here. Because just like it says here, the company that they hired does not have permission to offer any higher compensation than what's in this section 2.2. It's very, very common in our market for the seller to pay the buyer's agent commission. And a lot of the reason for that is because buyers have to get their loan fees, their down payment, and the more things that they have to pay for, the harder it is to get into a house. And so for years and years and years, it's been normal for the seller to pay those fees. And I think that will continue, but it just will be disclosed in a different way. So the biggest change is that the amount won't be on the MLS. And so you'll have to get that amount through other ways, such as just asking. And then once you know what that is, it will be very similar to how it was before, where the seller is going to be willing to pay a certain amount. And then as long as that is workable between you and your buyer's agent, then you just come with the offer to make that happen, and it will be seamless. There will be some growing pains as people are learning, but it will function very similar to how the system is right now. And it will continue to make it possible for buyers to have the advice that they need to do well when they buy, and also for agents to be able to get paid for the hours and time that they put into getting it done for you as a buyer. Feel free to reach out with questions about your specific situation. We're happy to help. You can find us at smartmovesutah.com.